And he's north and I'm south, so we have a lot in common.
So you didn't follow each other like that. Honorable, in fact, you, like I said, lectured at the University of Ghana for a period of time before moving into politics. This idea to you, what do you, first of all, I want to, I know it's interesting to ask you for your honest views, but how do you justify it for those who still have issues with why promise to cover something like that again?
Well, as you heard our flag bearer speak to this issue during the launch of the Youth Manifesto, and I think yesterday during the youth engagement in the Volta region, he spoke about it as well. I come to this issue both as a parent, as a former lecturer, as you said, and also now as a member of parliament. If I were to just focus on my work as a member of parliament for the last 8 years, almost 8 years, I can tell you the number of students who gained admission into public tertiary institutions and were struggling, their parents struggling to mobilize the needed funding to ensure that they took up their places in the tertiary institutions where they gained admission. But as I said to you, I have received 4 requests, 2 directly from students and 2 from parents of students who have been given admission into nursing training colleges. And the problem is this: they are unable to mobilize the funds needed to even get registered as students. And it is the same with students who gain, some students who gain admission into other tertiary institutions. I received this, I continue to do so, and any MP listening to me would vouch for what I am saying. And in our interactions with young people, one of the issues that came up, and I wasn't surprised about, was the fact that mobilizing resources for the initial entry into a tertiary institution after one has gained admission has become a barrier. Now, it is a challenge. And so what do we do? And this is why the proposal has been made that we support our students who have gained admission to pursue tertiary education to be able to weather that initial but troublesome hurdle. So the proposal to absorb the academic fee for level 100 students, admitted level 100 students, is the solution. Because what is the point of saying that we are giving students an opportunity to obtain secondary education, and yet not putting in the effort to ensure that they are able to progress to the next stage? So the reasoning behind the proposal, we believe, it is justified because there is a practical challenge that has become inimical for progression from secondary to tertiary for those who have qualified and have applied and have been given admission. And that is why we believe that the proposal is resonating with students and prospective students.
I see. But you are in politics. Few things you know will confront you immediately you get into power. You start paying debts. A free SHS that's costing over 2 billion cedis a year. There are many other things to be dealt with. I'm sure there are many commitments, road projects that are being currently worked on. The IMF will be on your back to cut spending, reduce wastage, among many other things. How do you cover this particular policy? Because this will be a new spending handle that you are introducing.
Well, Senator, you are right with regards to all the other issues and the challenges and the expectations in as far as our engagement with the IMF is concerned. But we also know that in spite of that, the current government, which everyone believes has done very poorly in managing our economy and our resources, and indeed is on record as the most corrupt in the history of this country, still continues to spend. So, once we have decided that this is what we want to do, and it is in the interest of Ghanaians and the future of this nation, being cognizant of the fact that reports we are getting indicate that youth unemployment and barriers that are preventing youth from progressing are beginning to create a situation that does not portend well for the peace and stability of this nation. I'm sure you remember that not long ago, there was a report that indicated that over 2 million young people were not engaged in any form, neither in school or in any form of engagement. Now that is a danger. Having said that, it is about priorities. We have pointed out that one of the areas that we could find the resources under all the conditions that you have narrated to finance this policy is to cut down on the budgetary requests and allocations to the Office of Government Machinery. If you were to look at the records, the entire time that the NDC was in power, up until 2016, there was no time that a request and an allocation to the Office of the President or Government Machinery exceeded 800 million Ghana cedis. Compare that to the current situation. From 2017 to present, there is no year that this government has not requested and received in excess of 1 billion Ghana cedis for the Office of Government Machinery. In fact, last year it was 3 billion. This year it came down to 2 billion. The year before it was actually 4 billion. So, given the indications that our flag bearer has put out in the public domain, running a lean and efficient government, that budget would be substantially reduced. And the balance from the reduction of the colossal amounts of money that the presidency has been requesting and receiving for what we don't know, and we have challenged those requests and allocations the years. So a reduction in budgetary allocations to the office of the president would make room to finance this policy. And you see, if we were to take some of the figures put out by Africa Education Watch as a base, where 125,000 young men and women gained admission and took their places in tertiary institutions across board. And we factor in the average cost of academic fees, which is anywhere between 1,900 to about 2,500. So if we take an average of even 2,000, and you multiply that by the 125,000 students, this is even less than 300 million Ghana cedis. So I think that it is a proposal that can be funded, even with a slashing of the current trend of budgetary allocations to the Office of Government Machinery.
That's interesting to hear. And I realized that whilst you were responding to the first question, one of the things you talked about is how it even go to help those of you MPs. Because you currently now, I'm sure the numbers of students who are asking for support continues to increase year by year, that this will be a significant reprieve for you.
In fact, it is going to be a reprieve, not just for those of us who are being called upon to help, but it is going to be a reprieve for the students and their parents, and it will have a positive impact on the nation, because only God knows the numbers who have not been able to take up their places because perhaps the MP at the time could not assist. The parents perhaps are not doing well economically, given the current conditions that we face. And the mere fact that cost of living generally has skyrocketed. So it is a present matter, and it is something that should not be trivialized. And I think that we, as I have indicated elsewhere, we are very certain that this is doable, and we believe that we can mobilize the resources to do it. But even Senator, granting that by January 2025, when we take over the reins of the governance of this country, because we truly believe that is going to happen. And let's say as population grows, naturally the numbers of students would increase. If the number of students who apply and qualify to take up their places in public tertiary institutions even goes up to say twice the number indicated, I still think that we will be able to manage it. We should be able to manage it. And this will not even be anywhere close to what we have invested as a nation in other projects that we believe clearly are not serving the interests of Ghanaians. I mean, think about the $12 million that was given away to a contractor ostensibly to construct the Kwalugu Dam. Wouldn't that money have been better spent financing as many young men and women to take up their places for the first year? And you see, people don't understand why we focus on the first year. People have spoken about the student loan trust and all of that, and Get Fund. That why don't we let them gain admission and then they can get loans from the student loan trust, or that we can read to Get Fund so that they can get assistance from Get Fund. You see, for those two institutions, before you even qualify, you must first be registered in a tertiary institution And how do you register when you cannot even afford the fee, the initial fees, including the academic fee? So if we are then able to help them by absorbing the academic fee, which then reduces the burden, and they get registered and they are in the institutions for the first year. Then by the second year, they will then have the needed student ID number, they will have the ID card and all of the other requirements to then be able to apply to the student loan trust. But you see, let me quickly add this. The student loan trust is not doing well. And if you were to speak to NUCs and other student leaders, they will tell you the student loan trust is not doing well because it doesn't get sufficient funding from GetFund to meet its obligations. Many students apply and they simply don't get it. It's not because the student loan trust doesn't want to give them the loans, but because this government has collateralized GetFund and has also capped GetFund. GetFund no longer gets the quantums of inflows that would allow for it to then provide sufficient funding to the student loan trust for onward disbursements to students. So, if you notice in the Youth Manifesto and the commentary so far, we have also indicated that we are going to retool the student loan trust by ensuring that we dig up GetFund and also work to end the collateralization of GetFund, so that GetFund can get its maximum inflows. When that happens, we can then ask of GetFund to even increase the allocations to the student loan trust, so that when these students are now in first year and they are to transition to second year, the student loan trust would be available and have sufficient funding to give them the loans for them to continue with their tertiary education. So it is a synergized proposal that we are making.
Great. Except that there's one criticism that has come from the spokesperson for Dr. Baumia, that's Miracle Sabuaji, who says, so for a poor person who you help to get into level 100, what happens to them from 200 onwards?
Well, I just narrated, once we have freed GetFund from all the encumbrances imposed on it by this government for political expediency, GetFund should have sufficient funds to channel to the student loan trust. So that poor student, after having survived the first year, which we believe is very critical, would now have access to the loan. And mind you, GetFund also gives scholarships. We are going to retool GetFund itself to ensure that GetFund scholarships would go to students who truly need such support. So that obviously answers the question of Miracles Abuaji. But in any case, is it not ironic that Miracles and the NPP will be asking such a question? Now let me ask Miracles this question. Why do they think it makes sense to fund students across board, regardless of whether they are from families that can provide or not, on the basis of the argument that ability to pay is a barrier to obtaining secondary education? If we are saying that we are providing free senior high school because the bulk of our population is incapable of funding their wards, in other words, they are poor. So are we saying that suddenly when those same students then pass to go to tertiary institutions, their parents become rich overnight and therefore don't need support? That cannot be the case. So very same justification that they have given for free senior high school can also be used to justify what we are doing. And in any case, we are not even saying that we are going to support them for all 4 years. We are saying for the first year, and then we are going to put in place a mechanism for them to transition to taking the loan from the student loan trust. And I think it is a reasonable case that we are making.
I don't know if you're the right person to ask this question, but subsequently, I guess this question can be asked because there is some, in terms of clarity as to, because if you say universities, does that include technical universities among others? Because that question is being asked.
Well, I would only speak to what the flag bearer said. And I think we must also recognize that this is the youth manifesto. The main manifesto will be launched. And I believe that from where I sit, the technical universities are also universities. And so we ought to be circumspect in the way we communicate this matter. When we say level 100, level 100 is not a designation that is akin to only the traditional universities.
Okay. Doc, always a pleasure talking to you. Thank you very much.
It's always a pleasure speaking to you, Senator.
Dr. Clement Apaak is Deputy Ranking Member, Education Committee of Parliament, Member of Parliament for Bosa South. A few comments that are being made. And this is an interesting one, and I guess I will raise this with Prof when we get him on the line. This one, Kweku Moti Akpa.